What if one simple trip could bring you face to face with the people who gave you life? What if, after 20 years of wondering who you were, you suddenly found the answer? Not through a DNA test, not through a letter, but by complete accident. This is the story of Melissa Brozier, an American woman who traveled halfway across the world to visit the orphanage she was adopted from, only to come face to face with the family she never thought she'd meet. A reunion that happened by pure chance, on Christmas Day. The girl from two worlds. Melissa Brozier grew up in Columbus, Ohio, surrounded by snow, American traditions, and a family who loved her deeply. She had a mother who made her pancakes every morning, a father who cheered for her at every soccer game, and an aunt who always told her, "You were meant to be here, Melissa." And yet, in quiet moments, when she caught her reflection in the mirror or looked at family photos, she couldn't help but notice she didn't look like anyone else. Her skin tone, her dark hair, her almond-shaped eyes, they told a different story. A story that began not in Ohio, but in Vietnam, in a small coastal town called Hoi An. Melissa had been adopted as a baby from a local orphanage. Her adoptive parents rarely spoke about the details, only that she was left in safe hands and that she was meant to find her way to them. And for most of her childhood, that was enough. But as she grew older, so did the quiet questions inside her. Who were her birth parents? Did they ever think of her? Did she have siblings somewhere in the world, walking through their lives with the same eyes, the same heartbeat? She didn't resent her life. She was grateful for every opportunity she had, but there was always a missing piece. A feeling that part of her story had been lost between two worlds. Then, one evening during her teenage years, her aunt, the same woman who'd been her biggest cheerleader, made a promise. "If you graduate high school, I'll take you anywhere you want in the world." Most kids would have picked Paris or Tokyo, but Melissa didn't even hesitate. "I want to go to Vietnam," she said softly. "I want to see where I came from." The Red Book in Hoi An. Years later, in December 2018, 20-year-old Melissa finally boarded a plane to Vietnam. It was meant to be a cultural trip, to taste the food, see the lanterns of Hoi An, and walk through the streets of the country where her story began. But deep down, she also wanted closure, not answers necessarily, just a moment to stand in the place that once held her as an infant. Together with her aunt, Melissa visited what they believed was the orphanage she had been adopted from. It was a warm afternoon when they arrived. The sound of children laughing echoed through the courtyard. Melissa carried with her a bag of Christmas gifts, small toys and candies she wanted to give to the kids. They approached a man working there, perhaps a director or caretaker, and explained why they had come. Melissa spoke gently, unsure of how much he'd understand. "I was adopted from here, I think." "I just wanted to visit." The man studied her face for a moment. Then he nodded slowly and motioned for them to follow. Melissa and her aunt exchanged confused glances as he led them down a narrow hallway and into a small office. He opened a drawer, pulled out a large red book, and laid it carefully on the desk. The room felt suddenly still. As the pages turned, Melissa saw black and white photographs of children, faces frozen in time. Then, the man stopped. He pointed to a small, faded picture taped to the corner of a page. Melissa gasped. It was her. The same baby photo her parents kept in their home in Ohio, the same one she had stared at for years, wondering what it meant. For a moment, her body went numb. Then, the man said something that made her heart race. "Your family. They come here. Every few months, they leave their phone numbers, their addresses. They've been waiting for you?" Melissa froze. Her aunt's eyes filled with tears. The man asked her a question she never expected to hear. "Would you like to meet them?" Melissa could barely speak. "Yes," she whispered, trembling. The man made a few calls. Minutes passed in silence that felt like forever. Then, from outside, the sound of engines broke the stillness, a line of mopeds pulling into the courtyard. Melissa stepped outside, and there, through the humid air and Christmas bells echoing faintly from a church nearby, she saw her mother. Her name was Gia P., a woman with the same eyes, the same soft face, the same quiet sadness Melissa had sometimes seen in her own reflection. The two women ran toward each other, strangers bound by blood, and embraced in silence. Melissa said nothing. Her mother said nothing. But somehow they understood everything. Tears streamed down their faces. The years between them, the decades of separation, melted away in one impossible, miraculous moment. It was Christmas Day, and for the first time in her life, Melissa felt home. The faces that look like mine. That evening, Melissa was taken to her family's home, a small, simple house on the edge of town. There she met her father, Hien, and several siblings she never knew existed. Her aunt filmed quietly from the corner, capturing moments that words could never describe. The laughter, the tears, the awkward but heartfelt smiles as everyone tried to bridge a 20-year gap with gestures and touch. Melissa didn't speak Vietnamese. Her family spoke very little English, and yet somehow they managed to understand each other through eyes, through warmth, through the kind of silence that only love can fill. When they sat down for dinner that night, Melissa found herself staring around the table at faces that looked like hers, at the same curve of the nose, the same shape of the eyes, the same dimples that appeared when someone laughed. And she cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that she finally belonged somewhere. For the first time, she didn't have to wonder where she came from. She didn't have to imagine who she might look like. She was surrounded by the answers. Her biological parents explained, through a translator, that they had never stopped searching for her. Every few months, they returned to the orphanage, leaving new phone numbers, addresses, photos. They had kept a small, wallet-sized copy of her baby picture, each sibling carrying one wherever they went. At home, the same photo was framed on a shelf, slightly faded, surrounded by candles. They had never let her go, not really. They had just been waiting for the day she would return. That night, as fireworks lit up the sky over Hoi An, Melissa sat beside her mother on the steps outside. Neither spoke. They just held hands, two lives once separated, now quietly rejoined. And though Melissa had grown up thousands of miles away, in a world of snow and English lullabies, that night she felt something deep inside her. A strange sense of wholeness, like a missing chapter of her life had finally been returned to her. Coming full circle. Melissa's reunion happened in 2018, but for years she kept it private, tucked away in her heart like something too sacred to explain. It wasn't until Christmas of 2023 that she finally shared her story on TikTok, where millions of people were moved to tears by her miracle. Now 27, she stays in touch with her Vietnamese family through Facebook. She's learning the language, bit by bit, hoping one day to speak to her parents in their own words. And she dreams of returning, this time with her adoptive parents, so that the two families who shaped her can finally meet. When asked how she felt sitting next to her birth mother for the first time, Melissa said, "It was like everything around me disappeared. We didn't share a language, but there was an understanding that everything was okay. I felt whole." She described how surreal it felt to look around the dinner table and see people who shared her features. "It's the strangest comfort," she said, "to finally know where my nose comes from or why my ears look the way they do." But perhaps the most beautiful part of her story is what she discovered later. That same baby photo in the orphanage, the one she recognized in the red book, her family had carried copies of it for years, in wallets, in frames, in their hearts. They never forgot her, and she never stopped wondering about them. It just took 20 years and a Christmas miracle for their paths to meet again. Melissa's story isn't just about reunion, it's about the invisible threads that bind us, even when oceans, languages, and decades stand between us. It's about the power of love that refuses to let go, no matter how far apart we are. Because sometimes, the family we think we've lost is waiting for us, in a small orphanage on the other side of the world, still hoping we'll find our way home.